and welcome back to the Pleasing God podcast, a show focused on helping Christians to think biblically, engage practically, and live faithfully for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jonathan Soul, and on this episode, I have the great privilege to welcome my guest, my pastor, a mentor, and my father. So, Pastor Jim.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. It's a privilege to be here, not only as your father, but as your colleague and your co-laborer here in our church.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome. So what I want to do is I really want to kind of have like an interview with you and talk about your ministry and your ministry experience. You've served faithfully for 23, 24 years.
That's right. We're finishing up 23 years here at Quinnessett.
Yeah, 23 years in one location.
In one place, too. That's right.
So yes, so for this episode, I want to focus on lessons from the years of pastoral ministry and kind of sit back and hopefully for listeners, they can glean some wisdom from your experience, Dad. The highs and the lows and just everything that goes into serving faithfully over the long haul. And so I've got some questions for you, maybe some categories we can think through, but ultimately just a free-flowing kind of conversation. You get to share a little bit about your heart and also reflect, too, on just God's faithfulness, which truly any type of sustained longevity in one place I must be attributed to the faithfulness of God.
Oh, no question, Jonathan. It has to be. If there isn't a sense of divine constraint or divine calling, then no man would be sustained in this. He would leave not long into it because of the difficulties associated with it.
Wait, are you saying pastoral ministry is hard?
I would say that when you go into pastoral ministry, what you think it is not what it will be.
Oh, the honeymoon phase?
Yeah, there's a lot of this starry-eyed that you're excited about it, and then you go through a honeymoon phase, and then you start getting into the trenches, and it gets extremely difficult. And I think as you look at it, as you go in, you think you're somewhat equipped, but you soon find out who is sufficient for these type of things.
You know, you don't know what you don't know until it comes across, and you're like, I wasn't ready for that, or sometimes. Yes, great principles and examples in the Bible, but sometimes you're facing something and you just can't go to like a scripture and verse and say, boom, this is what I have to do right now. There's wisdom, prudence, judgment calls that have to be made at times.
And it comes through many failures and many years of experience. As I look at 23 years here, I would like to go back and restart it based on what I know now and go back and redo a lot of things because I see how patient God has been with me, how good He's been with me, and how He's blessed despite me. Not because of any great things I've done, but because He's such a great God who loves His church far more than I do.
You know, I think you touch on a good point there, too. I think we all, at some points in our lives, would say, if I could just hop into that time machine, bring my knowledge and experience of the man that I am now, and apply that to the man I was early on, what different, oh man, what a world of difference that could have made. But we know we can't do that. So one of the things that we can do is have a conversation like this one that so you might not be able to get into your time machine, but you can pass down the wisdom so that the rising generation of men maybe considering ministry or early on in the ministry can still glean from your experiences.
And I think that's where we can look back, and not with regrets, but we can look back and see all the things that we went through and to shape us as where we are today. And now we can take young men who sense a call, and we can help them and maybe even teach them in the early stages to avoid some of the things that we experience.
Hey, I stepped on this landmine. Don't do that.
Exactly.
Yes. Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. So 23 years in Quinnessett, and we've been serving together in ministry for over a decade as well. So half your time been that thorn in your flesh?
Well, I wouldn't say thorn in the flesh. I mean, there were. It certainly is a unique experience for a father and son, because a lot of times it just doesn't work.
Sure.
God has allowed us to allow it to work. It hasn't been always easy, but yet He has allowed us to have a same vision, have a same passion for making disciples, seeing the lost come to Jesus, and so in that context, it's been very good and very encouraging to co-labor with you, not only as my son, but as what I see as a rising star, and to see that how God uniquely equips people different ways. As you know, I've had two careers. I spent 24 years in active duty in the Navy, United States Navy, and I actually got converted on a warship in the Mediterranean Sea. And my first couple of years as a Christian, the church never sought me, and I never sought the church. And so I didn't see the importance of the church.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Getting saved kind of through outreach on a ship, not necessarily through the context of a local church.
Parachurch,
So,
I mean, at best.
So let's talk about that kind of first category. And, share with us kind of, and for our listeners, your call to ministry, how that came to be. You got saved on a destroyer in the Mediterranean, and you became a fanatic immediately.
I did.
How much of that is just your personality, too?
Well, I think it was largely in part is because of the man that God used to draw me to Christ. This man was an introvert. He never preached a sermon in his life, very quiet and very reserved, but he loved my soul.
Yeah.
He really took an interest in me, and I watched that over a period of time. And he earned a hearing. When he came to me with the gospel after a few months on deployment, I was willing to listen to him. And to me, that stuck with me as one of the great things to carry over into pastoral ministry, is to have a love for souls, to really love the lost, and to have an interest in the souls.
So, time stamp. Okay, you're saved when you're in your early 20s?
I'm 21.
21 years old. It's interesting. My story kind of, everything turned around for me at 21 too. And how long from coming to know Christ and really starting to cut your teeth, what is the Bible? How do I, from that point till you started to sense maybe this call, aspiration?
Sure.
How
It
long?
was about a 2-year, and what initially after I was converted, this man, we pulled into Naples, Italy, took me to a Christian Serviceman Center and bought me my first Bible.
Okay.
And he showed me how to read the Bible.
James Version?
And it certainly was a King James Version, and memorized my first verse, Hebrews 10:23, let us hold fast our confession of faith without wavering, for He is faithful that promised. And he showed me, so at the early stage, I knew the importance of one-on-one, of personal relationship discipleship, because this man did this to me, and then 6 months after that, he was gone, and I got plugged into a church where I met your mother.
Okay, and where so this,
That's about 18 months.
Yeah.
After my conversion.
Okay, you're not in Italy or anything
I'm not.
anymore.
I'm now in Virginia.
Okay.
And I've gone to Roanoke, Virginia, my first shore station.
Okay.
And so here I am, and I had no aspirations of being a pastor or anything. I had a desire to grow.
Yes.
I knew nothing about the church, and so I met another sailor who took me under his wing as a young believer, and he used to do services for the Navy Marine Corps Reserves at the station I was at. And so I would help him. I would set up chairs. I would put hymn books out, and he did the preaching. I never once even considered that. And
was there something like, did you enjoy preaching? Like,
I never preached prior to.
Did you enjoy listening to preaching?
I did.
Because some people, it's not their number one thing, right? And obviously, we're pastors, we're preachers. Like, you're not a good preacher if you don't love good preaching.
I agree with that.
And so
yes.
I know one of the things for me in just the kind of rise into ministry is that I fell in love with preaching, not the act of preaching, but like when I would hear really good preaching and good sermons, and like I felt like something was like it like lit a fire in my soul a bit. You
Well, it
know what I
did for
mean?
me too. When I first got there, I started listening to some fundamentalists. I
Oh,
started
yeah.
listening to the Sword of the Lord guys,
Yeah.
and I used to get cassette tapes of Jack Hyles, and I had hundreds of those tapes and
Sure.
listened to those. But this man, he told me one Friday. And I never, ever wanted to speak in front of people. I was always scared, afraid
Sure.
of that. And so he told me that I was going to preach that Sunday. And it was Friday. And I said, that's not going to happen. And he says, if you don't preach, there'll be no service. And there's going to be about 60 people in this throw
Whoa!
hall.
So he threw you.
And so he threw me into the fire, and I said, I can't do this. He goes, then we won't have a service. So he really, he put me in a very awkward position.
Ooh.
So I remember scrambling around Saturday in Psalm 8, and I had no idea. I don't know anything about outlines. I knew nothing. Psalm 8.
Psalm 8's a chiasm.
You know, it's how excellent is thy name in all the earth. And so I remember sweaty palms, sweaty armpits, standing up in front of all these people. And I didn't know at that time that people took notes when they listened to preaching. And in the front row, there were 6 individuals there. These were older men, and they were enrolled in Liberty University in the seminary. And they had
Okay.
these clipboards, and I thought they were there to critique me. I had no idea who these men were.
Were you sweating as you see these
I
guys
thought
taking
here I was
notes?
getting grilled by
no,
these
there's
guys.
gonna be a whole list.
And there was one individual who he'd come out of the business world. He was older, and I had known him a little bit, and he was going to be a pastor. And they all sat there, and I fumbled through this sermon for 20 minutes or so. And then after it was over, he had written me a personal note, and he gave it to me afterwards and just walked away.
Okay.
And I remember taking that note, and I opened it up, and it said, Jim, God has given you a gift that if you don't use it for his church, the church will be at loss.
Ooh.
And
That
I
stuck with you.
And I thought, wow. And so I then had opportunities. And then I went back to sea duty, and I had all kinds of opportunities.
On the ship?
I did. I was running Protestant services every week. I was preaching every week. I was orchestrating Bible studies every week. I took a Bible Institute at our church. I went through that for an education purposes.
Oh, Bible institutes and churches are a good thing.
They are. We're doing that here. You've instrumented in our church, and it's a really good thing. We need those type of things. And so the Bible Institute was very fundamental in my growth because we had professors from Liberty University who were coming over to our church and teaching that on a Monday night.
So, okay, that was helpful to
That
you.
was fundamental.
because
Doctrines, New Testament survey, Old Testament survey.
Because you hadn't gone to Bible college, Bible
Nothing.
school,
I was
anything.
only been a Christian for 2 years.
So you were the guy that was on fire for the Lord, read your Bible a lot, and you were
I wanted
hungry.
knowledge.
Hungry.
And so
yeah.
after that, I went back to sea, and I enrolled online Liberty University and started my undergraduate work.
Okay, so is this the point where you're starting to say, okay,
I started to get a stirring then.
that I need to whatever God's timeline is for me, but this was when you're like, I believe that God's calling me to be a pastor.
Yes, that's right, Jonathan. And your mother was also, because she was a perfect a pastor's wife to be. She was the assistant pastor's secretary. She was the apple of the eye of the senior pastor, and so she was really equipped for this. And so we talked about
Was
it.
she serving in ministry before you?
We actually served together before we got married in Awana in our church.
Yeah,
And
but she was in the church
she was
serving when you met
She
her.
was teaching in the Christian high school business. She was also
Wow,
the secretary
checking all the
of the
boxes.
assistant pastor. Plus, she was, was really an adopted daughter for that.
It's a different subject altogether, but
Yeah.
God, I truly believe God gifts pastors' wives to
Absolutely,
the church as well.
absolutely.
Not Herschel York said it in his Pastor Well podcast, which was really helpful to me. But when talking about the pastor and his wife, he says she's not called to the ministry, or she's not called to the job, but she's called to the life.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's a whole different thing. But okay, so
But I would caution young men, if they think the God is calling them and they're married, they better go slow, and they better make sure that their wife, though she may not, they won't know what it's going to be like, but she has to be very supportive and be willing to commit to that type of life.
yeah, oh yeah, I know. I can remember the conversation with Caitlin before we got married, and I just said, I wasn't in pastoral ministry, but it was pretty clear that my life was going in the trajectory of vocational ministry and whatever that. I don't know, I'm going to be a missionary, I'm going to be a teacher, I don't know, but I knew that my life was given over to hopefully the local church that serves the Lord. So we had that conversation, and I think both of us then, young in our mid-20s, she was a little younger, but it felt like we were signing a blank check together.
That's right.
And it's like she said, "I'm all in," and to this day, she's never not been.
And she's not, and she's a great pastor's wife. And get back to how this continued to evolve. I wanted to be involved in like that man did with me. I wanted to see young men come to Christ. I wanted to see sailors come to Christ. And I had opportunities to preach. And then when we moved to Rhode Island, we started coming to Quinnessett when I was still in the Navy, and Pastor John Burnett.
Okay,
he gave me all kinds of opportunities to serve.
And that's when you started really kind of honing in on this pastoring in the local church.
That's right, Jonathan. I sensed that I was going to be a pastor someday. It was the desire I had. I didn't know where, I didn't know how, and frankly, I didn't really hone in on that. I saw the Navy. I saw it as a real equipping ground for me, because I had all kinds of opportunities to serve, and so it was unique in the sense that I didn't go the traditional, seminary route. I mean, I finished my undergraduate work. I enrolled in seminary for 18 hours, but I saw that my path in the Navy, and because of my seniority, I was getting to interact and develop people skills that were instrumental in the pastorate.
Okay, and so you did your Navy career.
I did.
You retired from the Navy. You tell the story that you retired on a Friday, and then on that Monday you were brought on staff. You had already kind of been, it was clear that you were coming on the staff at Quinnessett, and that you were, and it was very much a transition. Like when you came on, there wasn't like, oh, here's the transition plan that we had.
And I think it's important for your audience to understand is that I believe that God calls a man, and that the man has to allow that to percolate, so to speak. It has to intensify to where he can't do anything else but that.
Well, I think there's we see precedent, 1 Timothy chapter 5, where Paul says basically, Timothy, don't be hasty in the laying on of hands, the appointing of elders, because there has to be again this time of and process.
That's right.
And calls to ministry are both internal, external. I mean, ultimately, a church has to call you. Anyone who's called to the ministry but not called by a church, to pastoral ministry, they're not called to pastoral ministry.
I agree, and that's what happened at Quinnessett, is that Pastor Barnett had given me opportunities to preach. People were affirming giftedness. I was involved in the church. Not that I was seeking a position; it sought me.
Sure.
They came after me to be the assistant, and so all that lined up where there was an affirmation by the church of giftedness. There was an affirmation of character. There was an affirmation of effectiveness, and so all those things kind of aligned, which I didn't seek. And I think it's important that all those things come to the man, and then it's affirmed by the body, it's affirmed by the leadership, and that kind of put it into play to where they extended a call to me to come as the assistant.
Great. So you come on staff, you spend a couple of years as an assistant, and then you take over as the lead pastor.
3 years as the assistant, and then voted in as the senior, which really was the only. You're doing the solo pastor, rocking the solo pastor thing. Had to build up an elder board from that. So if you were to reflect, say from that time that you came in and you were at the helm, you're the lead guy. What are maybe just a couple big lessons that you think you've learned over the long haul that would be helpful to someone who's thinking about ministry, or just even informing church members, of kind of a behind the scenes with the pastors type of thing? Yes, I think as the assistant, transition from an all volunteer service with the Department of Defense into an all volunteer service in the church, that isn't seamless, and I think that I had to really understand that you can have a lot of strengths, but you got to be careful that you don't try to do spiritual ministry in the strength of self or the strength of flesh.
Okay.
And I think I did some of that out of ignorance in the assistant role. I saw that we needed change. I saw we needed a lot of rudder changes, so to speak, here, because we were a church that was in a maintenance mode at best, if not dying, and I saw the need for a lot of change. And I think I was a little bit impatient,
Sure,
at the pace of change, but I also, because of my military background, I was loyal to the chain of command. And so I wasn't undermining leadership or trying to be pushy, but I knew that we had to have a sense of urgency. And I think that contributed to the change of leadership. I think it contributed to the change. And so when I got over as the senior guy, it was quite a cultural shock, because I really thought I had it figured out, but I quickly realized that this is way too much for a mortal man to even attempt to do.
Yeah, for sure.
But you asked a question about what I've learned when you look back. I look back in those formidable 8 years. It was 4 or 5 years, and there was many challenges. There was one of the challenges of preaching 2 times on a Sunday. Plus teaching a Sunday school on a Sunday. So there was those 3 times, and then all the demands of people, because people want, and in some ways we were a climate of an old church with almost a sense of the social aspect of the church in the community. And for instance, if someone visited someone in a hospital and it wasn't the pastor, it didn't count. And so that was a lot of pressure that placed upon me. And I wanted to really get involved in people, but the demands of preaching and even the demands of funerals, we had an older congregation, as you know, I was very busy with that. One of the things during that phase there, I would go back, and what I would change is I would spend more time praying and more time interceding.
Okay.
Interceding, especially for the problems we were facing, especially for the people that sadly were sometimes guilty of sheep bites. And so I would spend more time interceding for the people.
Talk a little bit about sheep bites. And that, how can you give some good wisdom or counsel, because they're real and they hurt, and oftentimes usually you don't get bit in the face, you get bit in the back, right, or somewhere.
It's true.
And so
it's true,
because you don't see it coming.
You don't.
How can someone pastor well in the midst of what we're calling sheep bites?
Yeah, I think that Pastor Barnett told me one time. He says you can't avoid sheep bites, but you can keep them from getting infected.
Yes.
And what he was referring to is don't grow bitter.
Mm-hmm.
Don't grow bitter. And it's easy to do, is because a lot of times you feel it's unwarranted. And one thing with that is when the criticism comes, which it does, I had to learn, which I did not learn initially, I had to learn to step back, and before any type of impulsive response, either internally or outwardly, I had to ask the question first, is there any truth to the criticism? And if there is, then I need to thank the Lord that this was revealing something in me that needed to change. Or if there wasn't merit for it, then I need to let it go and just and not let it become infected. Mm-hmm. So that I would tell a young pastor or a young one that you're gonna have your critics, and you're gonna have those times when your preaching is criticized, and you need to be very careful that you don't take that so personal that you forget that you're dealing with, for the most part, you're dealing with God's sheep, and sheep are at different stages of growth and different maturity level, and Jesus bears with them all. Yeah. And we have to do it as well.
Yeah, and handling criticism is just it's the nature of what we do. We stand up in front of people, we lead from the front, we are the target of criticism. And so, yeah, definitely. But I've got brothers and sisters in my life that will give me criticism, and I love it, because I know where their heart is.
That's right.
And these are the people that are sharpening me.
That's right.
And I welcome it. Someone the other day said, "Hey, I've got a criticism for you," and I was like, "Oh no!" And they went to explain it to me, And I was like, that's criticism? Yeah. I was like, if that's criticism, let me have it all the time. And it was just like, hey, I think you said this, but here's maybe a better way that this could be done. And I was like, that is so much better. Keep that coming.
Yeah.
Mark Dever talks about when they do like service review and stuff, something I've listened to, that one of the things they try to model well is the giving godly criticism well, receiving godly criticism well. Receiving positive criticism well and receiving negative criticism well, but ultimately to do it in a godly way.
I think if you look, if you had to corner me to just list just a couple things that young pastors need to be constantly aware of, is number one, how you respond to criticism, and secondly, how you handle praise. Because praise can be it can be a well-intended thing that can ruin a man. Because then if you start looking for the praise and you start waiting for the person to say how good that sermon was or how good this was, next thing you know, when that dries up, you're going to find yourself really languishing in a sense of fulfillment and a sense of satisfaction because you're not getting that affirmation.
Yeah, no one's patting me on the back
Exactly
anymore.
right.
They're getting used to my preaching.
That's right.
Oh, they think my sermons are average now. Like until you get a new person that comes in and they're like, So
the person that praises you this Sunday may be the one that bites you with a sheep bite next week.
Yeah, so, don't get too high on the praise. Don't get too low on the criticism.
That's an important thing to do because you want to be steady as she goes, to borrow a Navy terminology, is you want to be the same in season, out of season, with criticism, with praise. You have to have that because your people need to see a consistency in us.
Yeah.
They have to see. I told someone one time that one of the things about being a pastor is that you always have to be on your A game. And that isn't being a hypocrite. The fact is you got to be steady because your people need to see steady. I'm a very strong advocate is that we grow our own staff. We've done that here. I believe growing your own pastors, growing your own staff is so important because it gives the sheep that sense of security and safety. I think longevity in leadership is very important. I think if anything, though I haven't been the perfect pastor, what I have been, though, is able to establish kind of a steadiness throughout the years.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think in many ways, you are the man in this place to start to bring about positive change, plug the holes in the ship, and do a good work. Because historically, you're the second longest tenured pastor. And there's a reason why a church at 200 years old wasn't for a long time seeing long tenured pastors. And that has a lot to do with the culture of a church. And church cultures change. And I think that your steadiness has contributed to a positive cultural change in the church. Now, we are running out of time, and I'm loving this conversation. And we should pick up and do a part 2 on this. But before we do that, can you share what your greatest joy is if you reflect on your ministry? What is like the highlight or something that just brings you great joy as you think about your time in the pastorate?
I think 2 things. One is to see how our church has changed from having a reputation in the community as being exclusive and stuffy, so to speak, to one of being caring and outreach. We have made a community impact in the last 10 or 15 years, and you know it because you've been a part of that. Our basketball ministry, our clothing ministry, we have impacted the community in significant ways, which I don't think we really realize how wide that is. So that's been it.
And I've got ideas for stuff that even more that we can do that I'm excited to.
I just think that would be one thing is I think because I can go anywhere in town and people recognize me. Hey, you're the church ball pastor. And that's just one area of it. And the funerals that I've been able to do with all the different funeral directors, we have got a good reputation as a church. So that is one thing. And the other thing is being able to pass the baton, so to speak, to you and to know that we're in a good place And as much as it's hard, but it's right. And I'm confident that we are in a very good place to really impact our community even more and further. And because I look around and all I see is a ton of young people and kids, it wasn't like that when I got here. And it's thrilling to see that, in 9 or 10 months that I'm going to be able to officially just walk away knowing that we're in a good place.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I mean, it's my son. I mean, how many times do father sons not work, and yet
Probably more often than not.
Probably not. But I think in this case, and our church has embraced that to where it's healthy and it's good, and I'm pleased that the Lord has allowed that to happen.
Well, you talk about healthy churches develop and raise their leaders.
That's right.
I think there's merit to that, very much so. And we talk also about the church being a hospital for sinners. And we want to be, we don't want a hospital with no patients, right?
No.
But at this other sense too, I see the church as kind of a teaching hospital where you have certain, hospitals that are caring for the lost, the sick, the patients, right? Then you have other hospitals that are training doctors to help care for this. And my vision of the church is that we are both, because pastors, I think, are truly developed and they come in the local church. And that way they can have on-the-job experience in ministry.
And I think when you look at the way our world is really unraveling, is that the church needs to be equipped to handle some of these cultural challenges as a trauma center, because that's where we're at.
And I think we could talk a little bit about that. So on our next episode, we'll continue our conversation, and we'll focus on the essentials of discipleship in the local church. We'll talk a little bit about New Day mercies.
Yeah, I think so. And one thing we might want to discuss too is, because we're seeing in our church, is that there is a lot of member-on-member ministry occurring,
yes,
shepherding each other, which really thrills us to see that happening. So.
Yep. And so, let's talk about those two things, and then we'll finish off with just encouragement for the next generation.
Very good. Thanks for having me today.
I want to thank you for listening to the Pleasing God podcast. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. You could reach out at questions@pleasinggodpodcast.org. And remember, 1 Thessalonians 4:3, this is the will of God, your sanctification.